Dear church, let's do 10 more questions for 10 more preachers with Derek Shepard. Hello and welcome to the Dear Church podcast. I'm your host, Chris McCurley. Derek Shepard is with me today as we continue our series, 10 more questions for 10 more preachers. Derek Shepard from the Una Church of Christ, which is not far from Dixon here in Nashville, Tennessee. Derek, thank you so much for tuning in and being with us today.
Chris, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be on here with you and to be able to talk with you and answer some questions.
Absolutely. And I know that it'll be beneficial for all of our viewers and listeners. You've been in ministry how long now, Derek?
This is my 19th year working in full-time ministry. Yep.
And we came across each other when you were in Oklahoma City and I was in Abilene, not too far from each other, and got to know each other then and continued that friendship. What's that been, about 7-8 years ago, probably?
Yeah, probably. It was around 2014, 2015, somewhere in there, probably.
Yeah. And I've appreciated your friendship and the work that you do. You've been in youth ministry, you've been in preaching. Now you're the preaching minister there at Una. And how's the work going? Tell us a little bit about the work. Tell us a little bit about your family.
So the work here is going really well. I have been here since September, and just a great congregation, great group of men that is leading this congregation, great group of shepherds, and really have enjoyed working with them and working alongside of them. And my family is doing really well. Got a couple of kids. My wife they're all at good pasture working and going to school. And so everybody's doing really well. And we're really enjoying the work here at Una. It is a very diverse church and something that is kind of new for us working with that. But we're enjoying it and just trying to still get to know people, get my feet on the ground and do some good things here. So I believe there's some good things going to happen here.
Yeah, well, I know all about that. Try to get your feet under you. It's been a fun experience, but it's a challenging one, isn't it? Right. Tell me first question. Okay, I've already asked you a couple of questions, but now let's get to the 10 questions. So first question is, tell us the story behind how you got into ministry and how you got into preaching.
So, Chris, I love this question. A lot of people talk to me about this and ask me about this, and I tell them the same thing, and that is I have always wanted to be a minister ever since I have been a kid. Even I remember going to worship as a kid and coming home and standing on the fireplace and preaching the sermon that I just heard over again. And that's just something that I've always wanted to do is be a minister. And as a matter of fact, as I think about that question, I don't know anything else that I'd rather do. I don't know anything else I could do other than ministry. It's just something that's been in my family. It's something that has just kind of been instilled in me all my life. And so I don't have a big story to tell, but other than the fact that it's just something that I've always wanted to do. And it's kind of like I'm fulfilling a dream. I'm living out the dream that I wanted to be as a kid. So it's just something I've always loved to be a part of.
Yeah. So who has inspired you or encouraged you along the way? Was there somebody you looked up to and you said, I want to be like him when I get older? I mean,
I have an uncle that has been in ministry for close to 50 years. And he was one that when I was a kid, he always told me, you're going to be a preacher. You're going to be a preacher. And when he would come in close to where we lived and held gospel meetings and stuff, I can remember going and being a part of those meetings with him and even staying with him, when he was in town and just looking up to him. And even to this day, he's still one of my big mentors and helping me through this. And, something interesting, I think, about my family, on my dad's side of the family, there has been a gospel preacher in every generation of my family.
Really?
And so, for me to be able to kind of continue that, it's something that has been really good for me. But he's been a big Roger Shepard. He has been a big mentor for me and someone that I always looked up to as a kid. And I've had some local preachers as well. I can remember Gary Purrier. He lives in Henderson, Tennessee now. He just retired recently from full-time work. And Bobby Wade. He was someone also that that I looked up to. And it was interesting because there was two congregations in Henderson, Kentucky, where I'm from. And I had attended both of them. And so when I went to school and got out of school and became a minister, those two guys, Bobby Wade and Gary, always kind of went back and forth on who was the one that put me in ministry and got me there. So it was kind of an interesting between those two guys who did that. But, and not only that, but those three guys have been big for me. But Future Preachers Training Camp in Nashville was a big deal for me. I went there when I was 15 years old. And the first year I was there, even though I'd always wanted to be a minister, you always kind of have those things. What else could I do? And that kind of sealed the deal for me. The first year I was there, the keynote speakers that week was Kirk Brothers, David Shannon, Andy Conley. And so those three guys were big as well and kind of, cementing the deal for me, getting me through to saying, this is what I want to do. And as you know, those three guys have done really well in ministry and three good guys to look up to.
No doubt. I mean, that's a powerhouse lineup there. Tell us, what do you think is the most important attribute for a preacher?
I would probably say for a guy that's going to stay in it for the long haul, somebody that's going to look at ministry not as a job, but as this is my life. It's a lifestyle. I think passion has to be a big thing. I think passion for people, passion for God, passion for Jesus, passion for the word. Those things, you got to have that, that passion within you. You got to have the heart for ministry in order to stay in it. I think guys that just come in and look at it as a job, I don't think they last because it's tough. It's not easy, but it's rewarding. And there's a lot of benefits that go along with ministry. And so, if I was looking at someone and saying, here's somebody that I think is going to be the minister that God wants you to be, I think the big thing has to be they've got to have a passion for those three things in their life. And I think that's where they'll stick with it if that fire is in their bones. So.
Yeah, there's times when ministry does feel like a job, and certainly you could be, pegged as a job, but it is a lifestyle too. And,
right.
Like you said, the passion's got to be there or else it's never going to work. What has been kind of the biggest challenge for you in ministry? I know you and I have had some conversations many times about just different areas of ministry and what to do in these situations, but not that you have to get specific or anything necessarily, but what have been the biggest challenges?
I think, first of all, I think one of the big challenges that I have faced has been just dealing with time and balance of ministry. And what I mean by that is you can get carried away sometimes by just prepping and studying and reading, and you can get carried away with that. And then you've got ministry things you got to take care of. There's people that need visiting. There's people that need phone calls and those kind of things. And so just that balance of, how much time do I spend in the office? How much time do I spend in ministry? Because I find myself sometimes looking at the clock and going, okay, I need to prep these 3 lessons this week, but I also got this list of people that I've got to visit, or I've got to call, or I've got to do something, I've got to help in some way or another. So kind of balance that. And then sometimes I feel bad because I'm not out there all the time and I am in the office some. And so it's kind of like that back and forth. You're that tugging back and forth between being with people and being in the word as well. And both are important in ministry, and both of them are something that you have to do. And so just finding that time and that balance to ministry, and I often say this, I say that the greatest thing about ministry is people. And also the biggest challenge about ministry is people.
No doubt.
So that is, dealing with that side of things as well. And just the emotional side of taking things home with you and, laying awake at night and saying, how could I have done that different, or how could I have handled that different? And so just those kind of things, it's just kind of a tug at you sometimes that you have to deal with those and as you work through ministry and do things.
Yeah. I struggle with that as well. I think a lot of ministers could say that because, like we talked about a while ago, the lifestyle aspect of it, when you do pour everything into it, when you are passionate about it, when you invest in it like that, it's going to bring you some heartburn. When I was coaching, I stayed awake a lot of times, whether you won or lost. You're replaying the game in your mind, and I thought, when I get into ministry, that it won't be the case. And boy, I was wrong. You still replay those things in your mind. You still think about it. You still question, am I doing this right or am I doing enough? And so I can totally relate to that. But so conversely, let me ask you this: what has been the biggest blessing for you in ministry?
I think just being able to see people when you're working with people and you're helping people and you're trying to minister to people, and then you see that change in people's lives. You see how you preach on Sunday and they may not respond on Sunday, but they may respond on Monday morning, or they may hit you up on Tuesday and say, "Hey man, that message hit me Sunday," and you can just see people's change in their life. It's just a blessing being able to work with people. I am a huge people person. Like, I love to be with people. I love to visit. I love to be around people. I love to minister to people. And so when you see people change in their lives, and it's just a big blessing, I think, to be able to see that, especially when you you deal with people that are coming out of addiction, or people that are coming out of certain situations in their life like that. And you have played a part in helping them to see Jesus and to get him into their life. And you see that change in their life. It's just to me, that there's no greater satisfaction than seeing people respond to the gospel.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I love that we get to be with people in the most significant parts of their lives,
Right.
like, get to be there for the birth of a child, get to be there for their baptism, get to be there for their wedding, and even the funeral. All the monumental points in their life we get to be there for. I think that's a huge blessing. And we get paid to be around people.
Yeah, I mean, we get paid to be with people, and it's just it's a great thing, and that's the wonderful thing about the kingdom, is just being able to watch people grow and be a part of those different aspects of their life and different seasons of their life as well. And so it's always good.
Yeah, you said it a while ago, where you have people, you have problems, and I guess they wouldn't need us if that wasn't the case. But it's you get to be there in the challenges, you get to be there in the blessings as well.
Right.
So kind of shifting gears a little bit, Derek, tell us what a typical work week looks like. And I realize things can be atypical more than typical, but if you had it your way, where you could just come in, there's no distractions, there's nothing going on in the week outside of your regular routine, what would a typical work week look like, Monday through or Sunday to Sunday?
So for me, it's a little bit different than a lot of guys and a lot of people in ministry, because I teach at Good Pastor. And so I teach 9th and 10th graders there. And so I have that I have to kind of balance as well. And so, like this week, I'll be teaching there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of this week. And so for those days, I come in early in the mornings, and then I go over there and teach. And then in the evenings, I try to, spend some time doing some ministry things as well. But for a regular day of mine, I spend some time in the mornings. I try to get in the office pretty early and get some things done in the office, and try to get started. Like, Monday mornings are always my big mornings, my big days to get the week going. Like, I feel like if I miss a Monday, my whole week is off track.
Yeah, me
and
too.
So it's just, I know a lot of people some guys take Monday off, but I can't do it. Like, I've got to make sure that I'm in here and get the week started off right. So do some sermon prep in the mornings, usually try to do some devotional time for myself in the mornings. And then by the afternoon, a lot of times me and one of the shepherds here will take some time and go and visit, and try to mix and mingle more with the congregation and stuff in the evenings when they're home, or even some older folks. I'll try to do that mid morning as well. So you never know. Any morning can be thrown off,
Right.
And so you just kind of got to adjust on the fly sometimes.
No doubt.
That's usually, with teaching at Good Pastor, it does add a little bit of extra to my week. But I've enjoyed doing it, and I think it's been a blessing for me, and hopefully for the kids as well, being able to do that and take time to do that.
Derek, you froze up on us.
I'm sorry.
There you go. Okay. You were talking about your Monday before you froze up on us.
So I was just saying, like, usually, Mondays it's hard to, or it's a day that I can get things started and get things going. And so then after that, just working and working with people and trying to help them. And, usually in the mornings is when I try to do prep for my lessons and try to do some time for myself as well, whether it's reading or devotional time or whatever. And then me and one of the shepherds, we spend some time out and about visiting in the afternoons and evenings some throughout the week. And so kind of throw all that in. But again, you just never know. That is the one thing that I love about ministry is no day is the same. Like it's something new all the time.
Yeah, you can sit down to work on a sermon, and I know I don't think I'm the only one that experiences this, but you can sit down to work on a sermon, it's just not flowing. It's just not there. Right. And you need it to be there, but it's just not. And you kind of know it's probably not going to happen right now. And you can get up and go visit, or you can do something different that day. So the rest of your week is just sermon prep, just trying to get ready for Sunday. What do you take a day off?
I do. I usually take Fridays off.
Yeah, same here.
Kind of get ready for the weekend, take a day off to breathe a little bit, spend some time with my family and, different things like that, and try to do some personal things on Fridays. But that's usually the rest of the weeks. I mean, it's just, for me, I'm sure you feel the same way, but for me, it's like you can't really plan out a week because there's always going to be an interruption or something different or something change. But for the most part, that's what I try to do. I try to do a lot of my study time in the mornings. I feel like that's when my mind's the clearest and I can get things done and before people get up moving around.
Yeah, I agree with that. So talk a little bit about sermon prep. When you're putting together a sermon, what does that look like?
So for me, it's different. Every time. I mean, not different every time, but it's like, I do change things up a little bit, but for the most part, I will, last year I started for the first time ever in my preaching career, I have started planning out my year of sermons. And so I sit down with a calendar at the end of each year and I plan out the next year, plan out series, plan out everything I can. And I try my best to get the shepherds involved with that and ask them their input and ask the congregation, what's some things you feel like, that needs to be preached and different things like that, and try to get other people's input on that. And then I try to plan that year out, which for me, the last 2 years it's so much better to have at least a thought, a topic, a scripture, or something down on paper that hey, this is what's coming up next week. This is what we're going to be doing next week. And so I begin with that, and then I just kind of start with working out. Here's my scripture. Here's some other scriptures that I'm going to be working into the lesson, and then I kind of draw my points out from those scriptures. And so, and then kind of just draw it all up and conclude it all, and then. I have started working on my PowerPoints as I go instead of writing everything out outline wise and then doing my PowerPoint later. I just find it just as easy to go ahead and start putting in PowerPoint as I work my way through it. So it makes it easier for prep and everything else. So
what do you do to get it from paper to pulpit? Do you stand in front of the mirror? Do you go and practice in the pulpit before Sunday? What do you do there?
I just review. And a lot of times I print out my slides and I have those with me. And I just kind of look at them throughout the week, get them familiar in my mind. If I have any scriptures or whatever, I'll read over those. But I've never really been one that goes in the pulpit and preaches it, or I've never really stood in front of a mirror and preached it or anything like that. I've just been, kind of one that just reviews it in my head and looks at the PowerPoints and just try to memorize as much as I can of it. That way, when I'm in the pulpit, I can make as much eye contact as I possibly can with the people. And so that's something that I really try hard to do is get it in my mind.
You write it all out? You're a manuscript guy? You an outline guy?
Most of the time, all I have is PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So no notes, but PowerPoint. Okay.
I may jot a few down on a piece of paper, but as far as typing them up and stuff, I really don't anymore. I don't do much of that. It's just pretty much my PowerPoints, and that's pretty much what I roll with. So
yeah. Makes sense that you would do the PowerPoint then as you go along.
Right. Yeah. And I do have a short outline. I do have an outline for myself, but as far as printing one out and typing it, I don't really do that because I don't ever take it with me to the pulpit. All I have usually is my PowerPoint. So
yeah. Well, so you're married to Catherine. You got 2 cute kids, little kids, right? I mean, they're getting older, but still, pretty young. How do you balance work life and family life?
It's difficult, but one thing that I've had in my mind ever since Catherine and I got married was that I always make sure that I realize that ministry is in my home as well. That it's just
Sure.
not at the building. It's not with just my church family. I have a responsibility to minister in my home. And so I have taken that responsibility seriously, that I make
Yeah.
sure that I take care of my wife. I take care of my two kids. Emerson is 8 now, and Evan is getting ready to be 11. And so, they're at some important times in their life where I feel like I need to be a part of their life. And so, even if I have to cut some things short, or maybe say no to some things, I will do that to make sure that I'm taking care of my family and ministering to them as well. And it's just really important to me. And there's been times where I've had to miss things that the congregation does and stuff, because I know that that time at home is just as important. And so it's not something that's easy, especially with me teaching and preaching and doing these other things as well. But, I try to do what I can. But I will tell you this, and you probably can relate to this, and a lot of ministers can relate to this, that if I don't, my wife will make sure that I take the time that I need to take. And there's been some times where she's had to remind me, hey, I think you need to take some time. I think, I think you need to not do that and worry about and take care of some things home. And so she kind of keeps me on track as well.
Yeah, I value my wife as a referee when it comes to that stuff. She's pretty good at that, and that's important. I've learned that probably the most important word in a minister's vocabulary is no, and that runs the risk of upsetting some folks sometimes. But sometimes you just have to draw a hard line in the sand and say, no, I'm not going to be able to do that because
Right.
you're spending time with family.
Yeah, I
Derek,
listen to my wife.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If she says no, you say no, right?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So last question.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to give some advice to a young preacher starting out, or maybe even just somebody who's been in ministry for a while, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give to help a minister?
So I would tell them, if they're a young minister starting out, that I would make sure that they knew to get some experience under a seasoned minister. I started out in 2004, and I started out at a small congregation in Kansas, and I love the experience that I got, and I value it. My second work that I took on was another small congregation in Kansas. Loved it, but when I made it through those two works, and that was my first 9 years of ministry, I realized that I probably should have worked under somebody for a little while to get some experience, to figure out how to do certain things in ministry. And so one of the biggest blessings in my life was I met an elder from the Southwest congregation, Oklahoma City, at a gas station in Newton, Kansas. And me and him talked. And about 6 months later, he called me and he said, we have a family minister position open at Southwest, and we would love to talk to you about it and see if you wanted to come. And so a lot of people said, why are you leaving preaching and going back to youth and family ministry? And at that point in my life, I felt like I needed to work with somebody to help me.
Yeah.
And it was a blessing because I got to work with David Deffenbaugh.
Yeah.
And David taught me so much about ministry in the 6 years that me and him worked together at Southwest. I mean, from how to handle myself in a hospital room, to a daily schedule, to how to handle myself and talk to the elders in an elders meeting. And I mean, it was just those things you can't buy. You can't buy that
right.
that experience of sitting at the feet of a seasoned, experienced minister and learn from them. And so if I was going to tell young preachers anything, I would tell them to, I know a lot of guys say, well, I don't want to do youth ministry. I don't want to do family. I don't, I want to be a preacher. I want to do preaching. Okay, that's fine. But I'm telling you, for the long haul, it's good if you will take some time and work under somebody. I mean, even today, I've been in ministry for 19 years and I still rely on guys. I rely on you. I rely on so many guys that I can call anytime.
Sure.
And I can say, hey man, this is what I'm dealing with. Can you help me through this? Can you pray about this? And so to have that kind of experience and have those people in your life that you can talk to, it gets you through. And so being able to do that and work under somebody, I think, is something that every young minister should consider.
Yeah. Great advice. So tell us, Derek, how can we keep up with you? What do you got going on? We want to promote the good on this podcast. So tell us anything you have in the works and what you have going on there at UNA or in your personal ministry.
So one of the great things that we have going on in this area is, and you probably heard of it, Christian Chronicle did a big write-up about it, is the Greater Together series, 6 congregations in this area that's working together to do different things. We're getting ready to start in the summer again. We're going to have 4 Sunday nights together where we're going to meet as 6 congregations, and we're going to meet together as one in different locations and stuff. And UNA is going to be hosting one of those in June or July. And so just a lot of great things happening with the Greater Together Ministries and different things like that. So I'll be at UNA, be working here in the local work, and looking forward to working with the Greater Together as well this summer and doing things with them. So
that's great. I love that. I want to tell our listeners or viewers that if you have a question about today's podcast, a specific question for Derek, we'll make sure that we get it to him. I'm sure he'd be glad to answer that question. Just email me at chris.mccurley@rippleoflight.com. Spread the word about the podcast. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Facebook. We just appreciate you tuning in. Derek, appreciate you so much for joining us this morning.
Chris, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. This has been a joy to spend some time with you and answer these questions about ministry and talk to, and hopefully it's beneficial for people. So appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Derek. And blessings to you and your ministry there. We'll get in touch with you soon.
Sounds great. Thank you.
And thank you all for tuning in. Until next time, may the Lord bless you and keep you. Sincerely, Chris.